So in this lesson, we're going to be talking about some of the properties of parallelograms. And again, we begin by first defining what a parallelogram is. So if you look at the two pictures on the left, you see parallelograms. And if you see the three pictures on the right, you see not parallelograms. So the question is, what's a parallelogram? So I think we can see that based on these two figures here, they have opposite sides that are parallel. And while this one has opposite sides parallel, this isn't even a quadrilateral and those two are not. And this only has one pair of parallel sides. So maybe we'll say that a parallelogram is a quadrilateral with opposite sides parallel. Maybe that's a nice definition for what let's see if we can move this thing around a little bit, get it where we can read it. There we go. A quadrilateral with opposite sides parallel. So that's what we're looking for here. That's what we're looking for in our parallelogram. And of course, we got this geometry sketchpad thing. Let's see what that says today. Boom. Okay, we're given a parallelogram and we have some options here. Let's first take a look at the opposite sides. I mean, I know that they're parallel because it tells me it's a parallelogram. But let's see what else is true about the opposite sides. So side CD drops down onto side AB. Side AD slides across to side BC. And notice that they're like perfect fits on each other. So what do you notice about those opposite sides? If you said they're congruent, bing, 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 you win the prize. Yay! We'll get to that in a minute. We'll sum up all of these together in one shot. Next, we're going to talk about some opposite angles. So opposite angles would be like angles D and B. They're opposite each other. And the ones I think we're going to see here are opposite angles A and C. So let's see what they do. A goes flying across the screen, connects onto C, rotates around, and no way. Yes way. What do you notice about those angles? If you said that the opposite angles are congruent, you win again. Oh, you're doing great today. Holy cow. So now, if we take a look at the consecutive angles are not opposite. So angles like A and D are consecutive angles. D and C, consecutive angles. C and B, consecutive angles. B and A, consecutive angles. Check it out. Let's see what happens to those two. Oh, we've seen that before. Look at what those two angles do. Oh, okay, so I don't think they're going to be the same. I mean, just by inspection, one's acute and one's obtuse. But notice when we click them, they form a straight segment. So if you said consecutive angles are supplementary, oh, you're awesome. And the last talks about the diagonals. So first let's show the diagonals and then check out things about their lengths. Oh, we've seen that flip around before. So it looks like point M is in the middle. Questions coming up. Why do you think I call it point M? So we saw that segment AM was congruent to segment CM, and likewise BM and DM would be the same size. Very interesting. So those diagonals cut each other in half. You know what that word is for cut each other in half? Bing, bing, bisect each other, yes. So they bisect each other. Why do you think I called this point M? What do you think M stands for? Did you say midpoint? Oh, you're awesome. So a lot of things going on here. Let's summarize these with some conjectures. Here we go. So the first one, we're going to call it the parallelogram opposite angle conjecture. So if you remember, the opposite angles of the parallelogram were congruent. And then we talked about the consecutive angles. Let's slide that up a little bit. The consecutive angles of a parallelogram. Okay, those were not the opposite ones. They were ones kind of next to each other. So they weren't congruent. But do you remember that they were supplementary? That's how those are related. The consecutive angles were supplementary. So opposite angles congruent, consecutive angles supplementary. So now we'll talk about some of the sides and diagonals. So we saw that the opposite sides of the parallelogram, yeah, they're parallel. But okay, and a little distinction here. The definition of a parallelogram says that the opposite sides are parallel. The parallelogram opposite sides conjecture says the opposite sides are congruent. Okay, because I've stated it's a parallelogram already, I know that they're parallel. So this says that they're also congruent to each other. And the last is that the diagonals of a parallelogram, let's say that they bisect each other. Okay, remember that word bisect means to cut in half. So the diagonals of a parallelogram cut each other in half. They bisect each other. So those are our four main properties of our parallelogram. Those are good ones to know.